Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, My Loverlies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I am so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got your back, at least where makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is True Love Tuesday. Guys, I want to apologize for the lack of content the last couple of weeks. Life has been insane. I have not had time to sit down, do any research, film a video. I've barely been able to breathe, let alone make content. But we are back to our regularly scheduled content. We're going to do the 2-3 videos a week. So I hope you guys are as excited about that as I am. Y'all, today's story is about Mr. Charlie Sheen, and I tell you what, it's a doozy. It's a lot. Before we get started, a very special, very warm welcome to any of those that are new to my channel. I am so incredibly happy that you are here. If you enjoy the content, I do so hope that you will mash that thumbs up button. I hope that you will subscribe if you have not already. And I hope that you will ring my bell, turn on your notifications, so that way, next time I upload a video, you can come right back here and we can hang out together again. Also, my eye makeup is already done. I am so in love with this. It's a little bit grungy. It's a little bit bright and fun. I just think the color combination is so unexpected and so interesting. I'm in love with it. I, of course, did film a TikTok on today's eye look, just in case you're interested. I'll make sure to have the tags for that, as well as all of my other socials, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff, listed in the description box below. Guys, if you are not following me on all my other socials, you definitely should go do that. I post fun content every single day, and if you're following me everywhere, you don't have to worry about missing a single moment of it. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. I haven't filmed a video in so long, I almost don't know where to start. Mr. Charlie Sheen. Public opinion of this man has really fluctuated throughout the duration of his career. It started off very favorable. He is incredibly charming and charismatic. I mean, at one point in time, he was the highest paid actor in television. Now, unfortunately, he had a very public mental breakdown caused by abuse of both drugs and alcohol. I'm going to go ahead and put a trigger warning for today's video. We're going to be talking about addiction. We're going to be talking about domestic violence, things like that. So if those topics are triggering for you, I really do think that you should skip today's video. I am so happy you stopped by, but maybe today's video is not for you. Guys, this man's life has been an absolute crap show. It just seems like he takes a handful of gold and turns it into turds every single time. Just makes very, very poor decisions. Now, when it comes to his love life, y'all, it is absolutely no different. This man has had opportunity after opportunity to find love. He's had women throw themselves at him, begging him, to just let them love him, and he's refused. He's turned it to mud every single time. It doesn't help that his life is so highly publicized that every mistake, every bad decision is magnified and then thrown out to the masses. So today's video is going to be incredibly interesting. It's also going to be very long. I have about 14 pages of notes. Usually for True Love Tuesday, I have 8 pages. That is almost double the amount of things to talk about. So I'm going to try to get into it as quickly as possible. Just in case you've never been here for True Love Tuesday, I sit here, I tell you an epic story, and I do my makeup at the same time. I don't usually talk too awful much about the products that I'm using, but I will, of course, put a full list in the description box of everything that I'm using in today's video. And of course, if you have any questions about what I'm using or how I used it, all you got to do is leave me a comment and I will get back to you. All right, with all of that out of the way, I hope that you will sit back, get comfy, get cozy, and let's go ahead and dive into the story. Charlie Sheen wasn't actually born Charlie Sheen at all. He was born Carlos Erwin Estevez on September 3rd, 1965. He's approximately 58 years old. Guys, I thought this man was so much older than he actually is. That just goes to show you what a lifetime of bad decisions and not taking care of yourself does to your body. I feel like he looks like he's at least in his mid-60s. Also, for some reason, I thought that he had passed on. So when I found out that he is indeed still alive and kicking, I was like very, very surprised. However, he did eventually get his stuff together, act right. He's doing much better now. We'll get into it in just a little bit. So of course, we all know that Charlie's father is actor Martin Sheen. Did you know that Martin Sheen is a stage name? His real name is actually Ramon Estevez. So I had no idea. I always thought that Charlie's brother Emilio, his last name was like, it was the one that had been changed. However, that is not the case at all. So he does have 3 older siblings. He is the youngest out of the bunch. He has 2 older siblings, 2 older brothers named Ramon, and then of course Emilio, and he also has an older sister named Renee. Charlie's career began when he was still just a teeny tiny little thing. I believe it began when he was around 9 years old. His father got him a very small part in one of his films. I think The Execution of Private Slovak in 1974. And then from then on is when Charlie had kind of been bitten by the acting bug and knew that that's what he wanted to do for his career. When it came to Charlie's adolescence and like teenagerhood, that kind of thing, he was extremely well liked and effortlessly popular. He had that kind of like just super cool, effortless, like that kind of vibe. He just was, again, super charismatic, very, very just charming, and he could talk to anybody. It was just impossible not to like this guy. And because of that, had a really like almost like a social butterfly, just very well liked throughout school. Now, he was also really big into sports while he was in school as well. He was actually the superstar pitcher and shortstop for his high school baseball team. Now, while Charlie really excelled both athletically and socially in school, the academic side of things was really just really, really bad. He put no effort into doing his assignments. He put no effort into actually showing up to school. And because of that, his GPA was basically non-existent. Instead of him focusing on his tasks and his assignments, he instead focused on making amateur films with his brother Emilio and their school friends, Rob Lowe and Sean Penn. While their early attempts at filmmaking were excellent practice for the careers they would go on to have, wasn't so great for their academic career. Like I said, Charlie performed so poorly academically that a week before he was supposed to walk at graduation, he ended up getting expelled. They expelled him because his grade point average, he didn't do any of the work, and he never bothered to show up. He basically didn't go to high school at all. He went, but he didn't do any of the work. And because of that, they kicked him to the curb. Now, Charlie took this as his sign to instead switch focus and really start working on his career, really start breaking into the Hollywood acting business. Now, when it comes to starting his career, it really didn't take him very long at all. Now, part of this is luck. Part of this is because his father had connections in the industry. But it didn't take very long for Charlie to start getting smaller parts in a couple of like kind of B movies. He then got a bigger part in a kind of like a low budget horror film, kind of straight to VHS kind of thing, titled Grizzly 2, The Predator. That was in 1983. Now, the next year, he got really lucky and ended up getting a part on the teen drama Red Dawn, starring alongside Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. Charlie would go on to work with Jennifer again in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We all know the scene in the police station where he sits there, he's kind of like giving her advice, and he's kind of like the bad boy with like a heart of gold, that kind of thing. Absolutely love that scene. We all kind of fell in love with Charlie Sheen just a little bit from that scene. I think the next year he got really, really lucky and ended up landing his first major like big screen role in the Vietnam War drama Platoon. Now, did you know that Charlie was actually supposed to be the lead in the film Born on the 4th of July? He went in, he read for the part, the director really liked him. However, they decided to go with Tom Cruise instead. So in that movie, if you've ever seen it, I do think Charlie Sheen would have been spectacular. I do, however, think that Tom Cruise was the better choice. Now, another movie that Charlie did during this time is a movie called The Wraith. Now, The Wraith is a very, it's not very well known at all. I've never heard anybody talk about it. The only reason I know about it is because my husband watched it when he was a kid, absolutely loved it, and then introduced me to it. It's basically like this racing car movie, but again, he plays the bad boy with a heart of gold. He's kind of like this, bad butt protector, that kind of thing. If you love super cheesy late 80s, early 90s kind of romance movies, but like romance with a little bit of like an edge to it, so good. Such a great movie. It's got a cult following. Love it so much. Anyway, so instead of Born on the 4th of July, he did that one. And then, of course, he went on to do a couple of other things. He went on to do Major League, Money Talks, Hot Shots, also, of course, Young Guns, in which he co-starred with his brother, Emilio. As for Charlie's television work, he started his career in film, and then after that, he kind of segued into television. Now, I believe he's only been in like 2 television shows, first of which was Spin City. He did that for, I want to say, 2 years. He came in and replaced the lead. And then after that is when he did 2.5 Men. 2.5 Men is by far and away his most successful project to date. This is really what skyrocketed him to household, kind of like end all be all, top of the top, cream of the crop, that kind of thing. This is where he became the highest paid actor in television. It got to a point where he was making $1.8 million per episode. That is so much money. And you're talking about the fact that they've got it's a series, right? There's at least 12 episodes a season. This man was making bank. It got to such a point that production would ended up having to stop so that he could go and check into rehab. The 3rd time in 12 months, have you? Yeah, so he was just really at a very low point in his life. He was absolutely off the rails. He was spiraling, and this is pretty much what led to the downfall of his career and what crashed and burned everything. So like I said, during this time, he's the highest paid actor in television. He's making $1.8 million per episode. So you say you're on a TV show, right? A series. It's got multiple episodes per season. Say there's at least 12 episodes a season. This man is making bank. Now, on top of this, he has the gall to go in and demand a 50% raise. By that point, the studios, CBS and Warner Brothers, they were done. Charlie also went on this big rampage where he ended up calling the series creator Mr. Chuck Lorre, ended up calling him a turd, all kinds of things. So of course, nobody's gonna take that. Nobody's gonna take that kind of disrespect. So they ended up giving Charlie the boot. He got kicked off of the series. He was replaced with Ashton Kutcher. I think Charlie ended up being on the show for 8 seasons. The 8th season, he didn't even finish. They ended up having to cancel the last 4 episodes in the season. And of course, this put a big kink in production. It cost the studios quite a bit of money. And so, yeah, Charlie got fired. Now, after he got fired, he lost his mind. He was super PO'd. He ended up trying to sue the studio. He tried to sue both Chuck Lorre and Warner Brothers, I believe, for wrongful termination. They ended up settling outside of court, so I don't really know the details of that. I don't know if Charlie ended up getting paid or not. But y'all, this is where his career it's where he really starts to spiral out of control. And at this point, he's got nothing left to lose, so he just does whatever it is that he feels like doing. As Charlie's drug addiction and alcohol abuse gets worse and worse and worse, he's still a celebrity, right? So he is still under the watchful eye of the media, and he is not behaving like someone under the watchful eye of the media should behave. He is doing interviews where you can tell he's just absolutely loaded. He is making off-the-wall comments. One of my favorites is saying, he said he was a warlock with tiger blood and Adonis DNA. This man has a very high opinion of himself. He also said, I'm tired of pretending I'm not special. I'm tired of pretending that I'm not a total rock star from Mars. Alrighty then, if you say so, sir. Ultimately, he ends up getting himself back under control, and he does a couple of commercials, and I think he does a Comedy Central roast. Now, the Comedy Central roast that he did was uber successful. Again, it's super easy to make fun of Charlie Sheen because he's just so outrageous. There's so much to be said about him. So when he participated in the Comedy Central roast, it was the most viewed roast in Comedy Central history. So he made quite a bit of money from that as well. I think he did a couple of car commercials. I think he did like an alcohol commercial, things like that. But after that big breakdown and after 2.5 Men, Charlie's career really, it never really recovered. He never was able to recapture that like cream of the crop status that he got to enjoy during his time on 2.5 Men. Now also, y'all, $1.8 million per episode. This man was doing, he was making so much money on top of endorsements, sponsorships, things like that. Now, at the height of his career, Charlie's net worth was estimated at around $150 million. Now, after all of his very poor life choices, you want to talk about divorces, alimony, child support, things like that, it has dwindled his net worth down to only $3 million. So in his lifetime, he has earned and spent and lost more money than many of us will ever dream about, right? So $3 million, still not too bad. You can live very comfortably on $3 million. However, he went from owning multiple properties, being one of the biggest stars in television, to going and renting a house in Malibu, kind of like being a nobody. Charlie has earned quite a reputation for himself as a notorious womanizer and quite a bit of a scoundrel in Hollywood throughout his career. Now, when it comes to Charlie's relationships with women, he proved himself to be kind of a despicable human being and incredibly untrustworthy. He used women, he threw them aside, and he took the people in his life for granted. Now, he's been married 3 times. He has 5 children. Guys, he's just not good to women. So go ahead, and I'm going to put the trigger warning out there. We're going to talk about quite a bit of domestic violence, physical abuse, things of that nature. So if that bothers you, this is where you should probably skip forward quite a bit. He proves to be just a very, very not nice person and not nice to women. Now, I want to say probably his most successful relationship is going to be with Denise Richards. We all know that he was with Denise for quite a while. They ended up having, I want to say 2 children together. Overall, though, Charlie has been married 3 times. He has 5 children, and it's just insane. We're going to jump into his dating history now. And y'all, I would never even have imagined it was anywhere near as bad as it actually was. Baby Charlie's first Hollywood romance was with actress Robin Wright. Now, they met in 1981. Before Charlie had really made a name for himself, he was still a relative nobody in the industry. They met at a party one night, got to chatting. They chatted all night. And then, of course, he asked for her phone number. They began dating very shortly thereafter. Now, they dated fairly seriously for over a year until personal differences pulled them in separate directions. Jumping forward to 1986, Charlie meets fellow actor Miss Winona Ryder. Now, they meet at an audition for the film Lucas. Now, they both end up nailing the audition because there is serious chemistry there. So, of course, they get cast in the film and begin working together. Now, I'm sure some of it has to do with animal attraction, some of it has to do with proximity, but for the duration of filming, they enter into a brief love affair. Now, I've heard it was very passionate, but again, very, very brief. So as soon as filming was over, so was the relationship. After Charlie and Winona split, it seemed like Charlie was kind of looking for something a little bit more serious and a little bit more committed. At this point, enter British actress Charlotte Lewis. They met on the tail end of 1986, just months after Charlie and Winona had kind of ended things. Charlotte was pure innocence. She was only 18 to Charlie's 21. Now, the age gap isn't very big, but when you're that young, it kind of seems bigger than it actually is. They met at a promotional event for Charlotte's film Pirates, and immediately Charlie was smitten with her. She was sweet, and she was young, and she was fresh, and she was everything that he thought he was looking for at the moment. So of course he jumped at the chance to get to date her. Now, of course, Charlie, very charismatic, very charming, he wins Charlotte over almost immediately, and they begin dating very shortly after meeting. Now, surprisingly, they actually date very seriously for about 2 years. They even moved in together at some point, and it seemed like their relationship was going really, really well, maybe even headed in the direction of marriage and starting a family together. Charlotte has said that he was sweet and sensitive and incredibly eager to please in the beginning. But after a little while, Charlie started coming home later and later, sometimes not at all. He started drinking and partying, and basically this is when the drug abuse and alcohol addiction really kind of kick in for the first time, and Charlotte's just not having it. Charlotte is very much a settling down kind of girl. Like, she is not interested in having a wild party animal for a husband. So very quickly after this pattern is established, she's like, peace, I love you, but I can't be with you. And they kind of like go their separate ways. It's so funny because Charlotte didn't want anything to do with Charlie's partying and, his antics, but she actually went on to pose for Playboy in 1993, and the sweet innocence must have kind of evaporated just a little bit because she went on to become quite a bit of a sex symbol in her own right. After Charlotte, Charlie's next romantic entanglement was the first of many questionable and controversial relationships. In the mid-90s, when Charlie's party boy ways were really kind of amping up, he met brothel madam Heidi Fleiss. Heidi was well known both in and around Hollywood for owning and operating a high-profile escort service. She was basically a female pimp. That escort service is exactly how the two of them met. Charlie had kind of taken advantage. I guess he had been a client of hers, and they met and they kind of hit it off and began dating. Now, they dated, I want to say they dated for about a year, but during this time, Heidi ends up getting in a butt ton of trouble. They end up finding out, the police end up finding out that what she's got going on. And at this point, it's illegal, right? It's still not legal. So just kind of not a good situation to be in. And Charlie has enough trouble of his own. As soon as her charges kind of are made public, he very quickly starts to kind of distance himself from her. Doesn't want anything to do with her drama. He gets in plenty of trouble of his own and doesn't need to be involved in any of hers. So of course, once she gets brought up on charges, Charlie is like, yeah, it was fun. It was real, but it wasn't real fun. That kind of thing. He skedaddles. Did you know that before Kelly Preston and John Travolta were the couple of everybody's dreams, she was with Mr. Charlie Sheen? I had no idea that they were actually a couple, and I think this is such an interesting pairing because you have Charlie, who is very much a bad boy. He's got that bad boy persona. And then you have Kelly, who is very much an American sweetheart. She is pure and gentle and kind and sweet and all of the things opposite Mr. Charlie Sheen. They met in 1987 while working on a movie together. Now, they were such a surprising match to so many people, and because of that, their relationship garnered quite a bit of attention. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons that their relationship kind of got cut as short as it was, because they were only together, I want to say maybe about a year, 2 years tops. Now, they were together, they moved in with each other very much in the I love you stage. When it comes to Charlie, if he finds something that he likes, he moves very, very quickly. And throughout all of his relationships, he does establish like a very exact kind of pattern. So he meets somebody, he dates them for around 3 months, and then at the 3-month mark, he either breaks up with them or he proposes. And that's exactly what he does with Kelly. So and this is where this pattern starts. So they date, he proposes, I want to say about 3-4 months into their relationship, and then they remain engaged for the remainder of their relationship. But they move in together, they're kind of like planning their wedding, that kind of thing. And honestly, what ends their relationship for good is so mind-blowing to me and really says so much about where Charlie was as a person and at his stage in life, because it's mind-blowing. Anyway, so one morning they're getting up, they're starting their day. Charlie gets up, he goes downstairs and he makes himself a cup of coffee. While he's downstairs making himself a cup of coffee, he hears a gunshot ring out, and it's coming from upstairs, and then he hears screaming. So he runs upstairs. They call the police. Kelly had gotten shot, right? So apparently Charlie liked to carry around a very small revolver in his pants at all times. I have no idea why this man felt the need to carry a revolver around in his pants as a very kind of pampered, rich Hollywood actor. But there we go. So, and of course, you know, instead of him putting it away, putting it in a safe, locking it up, or even just turning the safety on, he ends up leaving it in his pants in a wad on the bathroom floor. Now, of course, Kelly, she's a lady, probably enjoys keeping a tidy house. So she walks into the bathroom first thing in the morning after getting out of bed, and she sees this pile of clothes on the floor. So of course she picks it up to put it in the hamper. Now, as she picks this pair of pants up, the revolver then falls to the ground and it goes off. Now the bullet shoots between Kelly's legs and hits the toilet, and then of course the toilet bowl fragments, and the shrapnel, or a fragment of the toilet, then hits Kelly in the arm and causes some pretty severe damage. Kelly ended up having to go to the hospital and get stitches, things like that. And then of course the media hears about it because the police have to come to the house, all that kind of thing. And it's a giant kerfuffle. Of course, their relationship didn't last too much longer after that. I just don't know that I could be in a relationship with somebody that irresponsible, who leaves a loaded weapon laying on the floor in a pair of wadded up pants. Like, it's not okay. So of course they break up just a couple of months later, though their breakup is not, there's no animosity there. I just think Kelly was like, you're just not the one for me, dude. There was no cheating, things like that. He just made stupid mistakes, and she was just tired of dealing with it. Now, a couple of months after they break up is when she meets John Travolta, and of course he becomes the absolute love of her life. We're going to talk about Kelly and John a little bit later. I do think that their story is fantastic. Let me know in the comments if you guys want to hear about that one. But her and Charlie become persona non grata. They are no longer a thing. And I do think that the breakup with Kelly really does hit Charlie in a pretty big way, because after this, he kind of he starts to spiral just a little bit. Charlie's relationship with Kelly had been his first super serious one. Now, he, of course, had been with Charlotte for about 2 years, but it never really got to the proposal stage or to the marriage stage. And even though it ended in catastrophe, didn't really slow Charlie down that much. Charlie's relationship with Kelly had been his first super serious one. He, of course, had been with Charlotte for about 2 years, but that never really got to the proposal marriage stage, and he had been quite intent on building a life with Kelly. So when that ended in complete and total catastrophe, you would think that he would take a little bit of a step back, kind of slow down and reevaluate. However, that's just not how Charlie works. So he went on full speed ahead, right? He goes on, he dates around a little bit until 1995, when he meets English television presenter Tamara Beckwith. Now, they meet, and Charlie is instantly besotted with her. Her easy charm and quick wit kind of pull him in, and their attraction to each other is almost purely physical. There's not a lot really holding them together as people. So once that initial animalistic kind of lust phase kind of ran its course, there really was nothing left. So after that, they very quickly just kind of went their separate ways. Now, Charlie's next relationship was a bit more successful and even resulted in a marriage. So this is when his first marriage comes into play, and this is when Charlie changes. So the way that Charlie interacts and treats women becomes very, very different by this point. And I think that's because his addictions and his drug abuse are getting much, much worse by this point. And he kind of takes that out on his partners, because this is when he meets Donna Peel. And y'all, I feel so bad for this woman. I really do wish that she had never met Charlie, because he ruined her life. Charlie met model Donna Peel in July of 1995 in New York City, when they both got cast in a cigarette commercial together. So again, Charlie very popular at this point in time, and Donna, she is just kind of busted out onto the scene. She is up and coming, but she's also very popular. She's got this very fresh-faced, innocent, almost like a little bit of a purity to her. And again, this really, really is attractive to Charlie, because he left all that stuff behind a long time ago. So the minute he meets Donna, he's instantly just very charmed by her. There's something about her that he just wants, and I almost feel like he wanted to own that piece of her. Now, this is where Charlie really decides to start changing the way that he deals with women. And I think that is because his addictions and his alcohol abuse are really kind of amping up as well. But he is just not good or kind to Donna in any way. So also, this is where he starts to really establish that 3-month pattern. Charlie moves very quick with Donna. Before she can kind of see behind the facade, before the veil kind of drops, so to speak, he gets her and he gets his claws into her, and by that point they're already engaged. Now, just a couple of months after that, they end up getting married. They have a very small, very private ceremony. Really not a whole lot of literature out there on his marriage to Donna, other than the minute they get married, the way that he treats her and the way that they interact together becomes, it's like a switch gets flipped. It's like a complete 180. The very moment the marriage certificate is signed, he goes from being a loving, giving, caring, attentive partner to being a holy terror to her. He goes around telling people, he goes around comparing her to a broken down car. He tells people that she suffocates him. Like, this man, he's the one who really came in guns blazing, like absolutely made her feel like the most special girl in the world, absolutely gave her his everything. And then 3 months in, he's a completely different person. I think they were only married for a little bit over a year. Most of that was them getting divorced. I think Charlie went and filed for divorce just 5 months after they got married. So during that entire time, Donna, she gets kicked out of Charlie's house. He didn't let her work because, you know, nobody wanted to touch her because Charlie was so powerful at that point in time. She had all that drama going on. Nobody really wanted to deal with her. So she's got no money. She can't work. Her career has basically absolutely been destroyed, right? Because he plucked her out at the very beginning of it, right? So she never even really got a chance to really get it going. And he basically just ruined her life. He married her, then he divorced her, kicked her to the curb, and after they got divorced, she disappeared. She disappeared off the face of the earth. I dug, and I tried to find any information I could about her, but Donna never showed her face on film ever again. The only time she kind of popped up in film was when people did documentaries about Charlie's life, and they mentioned her in said documentaries, but she never worked in Hollywood again. We don't know where she went, if she stayed in Hollywood, if she went home, none of that. Because she was so new to Hollywood and was such a new celebrity, she hadn't even done any interviews. So nobody knew where she was from, nobody knew she had family, things like that. He really did take this poor, sweet, innocent girl and absolutely destroy all of her prospects, just everything. I think he traumatized her. Charlie's divorce from Donna was officially granted in November 1996, but by that time he had already moved on to his next relationship with actress Brittany Ashland. Now, Charlie had become very abusive in his marriage, and though the marriage had ended, the abuse did not. He simply transferred it to a different woman. And y'all, he absolutely did a complete and total, he did a number on this woman. So in his relationship, in his first marriage, I don't know if he was physically abusive or not, but he certainly was financially, emotionally, mentally, all of the things, right? But in his relationship with Brittany, that physical abuse becomes front and center. And again, during this time, his addictions and his his alcohol, drug, all that kind of thing, he really likes Coca-Cola. All of that is just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I do think that him and Brittany kind of partied together, which is what escalated their fights so much. Because whereas Donna just kind of sat back and took it, Brittany fought back. And I think because she fought back, it escalated the situation to a point where it got awful. So they date, I want to say they date for about a year until December 20th, 1996, when Charlie grabbed her by the hair and slammed her onto the marble floor, in the process knocking her unconscious and splitting her lip so badly she had to get 7 stitches. So this is the first recorded occurrence of Charlie putting his hands and being physically abusive to a woman. Now, of course, Brittany, she ends up in the hospital. The police get called because he really did a number on her. And Charlie, of course, ends up getting arrested. Now, this is the first time Charlie gets arrested for any kind of domestic violence or abuse charges. And Brittany, of course, and she had every right to, but Brittany goes on and she sues this man. She sues this man for everything he's worth. Brittany later pressed charges and ended up filing a lawsuit against Charlie on February 6th, 1997. He was later convicted on charges of misdemeanor battery with serious injury. Charlie was then sentenced to 2 years of probation, which he very quickly then violated the conditions of his probation. He violated, he had a dirty drug test, things like that. He actually ended up violating it when he overdosed, and his own father, Mr. Martin Sheen, had to end up calling had to call the police, the paramedics, because he had overdosed and he thought his son was unaliving himself. So I feel like this is one of the lowest points in Charlie's life. This is definitely where his give a darn has stopped working. Any sense of reasoning or any sense of like actually using his brain, it's just not happening at this point. And he just continues to make bad decision after bad decision. And again, most of it is caused by the addictions. Most of it is because of the alcohol and of the Coca-Cola. And it's absolutely destroying him as a person. Now, somehow, some way, it's still not really affecting his career. It does for a little while, especially after the Brittany incident, after, it becomes public what he did to her. He does stop getting offers for movies and things like that, and he takes a little bit of a break, goes on a little bit of a hiatus, kind of retreats from Hollywood for just a little bit, tries to get himself together. He goes to rehab, tries to get himself cleaned up, dry out just a little bit, and by some miracle, some way, somehow, he ends up coming back, and, the public have forgiven him. I don't think they've forgotten, but they definitely are not kind of like screaming at him anymore. And this is when he transitions from movies into television. By 2000, Charlie's career was back on the upswing. He was working again, and people had mostly forgiven him for his past mistakes. Charlie had stayed single for the past 3 years. Like I said, he kind of worked on himself, dried out just a little bit, really tried to focus on himself and his career. Now, all of that went out the window the very moment he met his newest co-star, Miss Denise Richards. She would become wife number 2. Now, for the first time, he was absolutely just enamored with someone who didn't want anything to do with him. For the most part, throughout Charlie's entire career, women had come easy. It had always been kind of like a come hither thing, and they did exactly what he wanted them to. But with Denise, she had absolutely zero intentions of getting into a relationship with Charlie. Of course, she had heard all the rumors. She had she'd kind of heard what kind of person Charlie was, and she was definitely going to save herself the pain and the strife that a relationship with him would indefinitely cause, right? So they work together. They end up working together on Charlie's comeback movie, Good Advice. And throughout their time working together, they have a nice working relationship, but it stays very platonic. It is strictly a working relationship. And at that point, Denise doesn't give in to his charm. She doesn't give in to his advances, things like that. It's strictly just work, and then they go their separate ways. However, Charlie refuses to give up on Denise. He is, like I said, completely just smitten with her. He's kind of obsessed with her at this point. And again, it's Denise Richards, right? She's hot off of the Wild Things, that movie. That movie absolutely blew her celebrity up. Like, it was just giant for her career. So as she's going in to meeting Charlie, she's very much a sex symbol. And Charlie he's on it like white on rice. So even though she doesn't give in to his advances, the first time he works together, he's like, you know what? I got to give this another shot. So when Charlie ends up getting cast in Spin City, he goes to producers and he's like, who would be great to co-star? I really think we should get Denise Richards on the show. Well, they agree. Denise ends up getting an offer, which she accepts, and she comes on and she does a couple of guest appearances on Spin City. Now, this is just the opportunity that Charlie has been waiting for, and y'all, he lays it on thick. He turns up the charm to maximum. And this time, Denise is kind of feeling it, right? She's not as opposed as she was the first time they worked together. And this time it's kind of like, should I not? Well, she ends up kind of giving in and agrees to go out on a date with Charlie. Now, from the beginning, I feel like the first red flag should have been that their first date was Denise going over to Charlie's condo and watching a football game. Like, I don't know about you, but that is not my idea of a good time, especially not for a first date. Like, if you're dating, if you've been dating for a while and you guys just want to like Netflix and chill, that kind of thing. But to me, coming over and watching a football game is zero energy. It's zero effort. And I feel like, especially Denise Richards, I mean, if I looked like that, I would be wanting 100% maximum effort all the time, you know? But she goes over, they watch the football game, they snack on some nachos, and throughout the entire evening, Charlie he's a perfect gentleman, right? He doesn't make any advances on her. He doesn't try to make any moves on her, that kind of thing. It's literally like just a hangout. And at this point, Denise has heard all of the rumors. He's kind of like a Lothario, right? He's a little bit of a Hollywood Casanova. Like, he's known as this kind of womanizer. And the fact that she is at his house and he's not putting the moves on her, she's like, what's going on here? So by the end of the night, it's actually Denise who makes the first move on Charlie, and she ends up kissing him goodnight before she leaves. By this point, Denise pretty much knows that he's the one. She's like, her brain is screaming he's the one. Her heart is screaming he's the one. Her brain's telling her to kind of slow down just a little bit, suss out the situation just a bit more. But they continue to date. And again, this whole 3-month pattern with Charlie, they date for about 3 months, and then boom, what do you know? They're on vacation at a spa, I think in Aspen or Arizona, someplace like that. They're on vacation, they're at a spa, and he brings out this little square box. He gets down on one knee and he proposes to Denise. Now, there's no frills, there's no fuss. It's just a very straightforward, kind of honest proposal. Gets down on one knee, says, Denise, will you marry me? And of course, Denise is just absolutely on cloud 9. She immediately accepts and then begins to plan their wedding. Charlie and Denise got married on June 15th, 2002, after an almost 6-month-long engagement. The venue was a sprawling estate in Brentwood, California, with an intimate outdoor ceremony in front of about 65 guests, including Charlie's father, Martin Sheen, Heather Locklear, Brooke Shields, and then, of course, Richie Sambora. Now, they enjoyed a good 15 months of wedded bliss before they announced to the world that they were expecting their first little bundle of joy. Now, for Denise, this would be her first child, but for Charlie, it would be his second. Now, way back in the day, Charlie had actually had a baby with his high school sweetheart, a woman by the name of Paula Speart. Now, they had a daughter together whom they named Cassandra Estevez. Now, believe it or not, Charlie actually walked his daughter Cassandra down the aisle and gave her away at her own wedding back in September of 2010. So this isn't his first daughter, but it's his first shot at parenthood, because he had nothing to do with raising his oldest daughter. I do think that most of that went to Emilio and Martin. I was reading an article and it said that Emilio was really actually heavily involved in the life of his niece, and Emilio kind of took over that fatherly role in her life. And then, of course, Martin, who is her grandfather, is actually a very doting, very loving grandfather, and actually kind of a fantastic parent. So who'd have thunk it? But so Charlie and Denise welcomed their first daughter together, whom they named Samantha Sheen, on March 9th, 2004. Now, they didn't give themselves too much time to rest in between daughter number 1 and daughter number 2. Just a couple of months after the birth of daughter number 1, baby number 2 was already on the way. So by this time, Denise and Charlie have been together, I want to say around 4 years, and it's been pretty good. From the outside looking in, it looks like they have the perfect kind of relationship. It seems like Charlie is he's doing so good. There haven't been any instances of having, there's been no domestic violence instances. The police haven't been called out to the house. things like that. At this point, it really does seem that they kind of have it all. Unfortunately, the illusion doesn't last for that much longer. I want to say when Denise was around 6 months pregnant with baby number 2, she ends up going and filing for divorce. I think the police end up having to be called, and there's a whole big kerfuffle, and Denise is just done. Now, what the public doesn't know is that for a while now, Charlie has been absolutely off the rails. He definitely has fallen off the wagon, and he is back on the Coca-Cola Express, and it is just not a good time for anybody involved. Now, you've got to think about the fact that Denise, she has a very young child at home. She's pregnant with another, and then she's having to try to wrangle in this giant man baby, and she just can't do it. So she files for divorce. She gets the heck out of Dodge, and then after she leaves, Charlie goes well and truly just insane. So Denise files for divorce from Charlie on March 2nd, 2005, citing irreconcilable differences while she was 6 months pregnant. 3 months after Denise files for divorce, it is then time to give birth to baby number 2. It is another daughter who they decide to name Lola Rose Sheen. Now, Denise, trying to foster a good co-parenting relationship with Charlie, allows Charlie to be present at the birth. She doesn't alienate him. She's definitely not trying to keep him away from their children. She wants him to be a father to their daughters. So she lets him be present in the delivery room, but just because he's there doesn't mean that they're getting back together. But also, on the other hand, Denise doesn't want to get divorced, right? She loves Charlie. She wants to try to make their marriage work, not only for her, but for their daughters as well. She wants him to be in their daughters' lives, and she knows there's going to be a much better chance of that if they're married. So she tells Charlie, listen, I'm going to give you 6 months, guy. You gotta get your stuff together. You've got 6 months to prove to me that you can change. You've got 6 months to prove to me that you can be the husband and father that I need you to be. If you can't do that, then we can't be together. And that's exactly what she does. She gives Charlie 6 months. And at the end of that 6 months, absolutely nothing has changed. Charlie has made no changes to his life or the way that he's acting. He's made no moves to kind of clean his act up, fly right, things like that. And at that point, she's like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And she goes ahead and she like moves the divorce forward. Come to find out, the whole 6 month period where Denise thinks that they're trying to reconcile, and she thinks that Charlie is trying to, shape up and fly right, turns out he's been enjoying the company of hired companions the entire time. At no point during that 6 months did he actively try to fix any of the problems in his life. She was so tired. At this point, she's so tired of being disappointed and let down time after time after time. She's like full speed ahead with the divorce. I am done trying with this man. I am done having him in my life. I don't want anything to do with him romantically at all. They attempted to settle the divorce privately and outside of court, but again, Charlie is refusing to cooperate in any way. He's basically just very, very bitter about the fact that she had had enough of his bullcrap, and he wasn't willing to let her go, and he dang sure wasn't going to let her off easy in any way, shape, or form. He was so combative when it came to child support and custody. This man is out partying with literal hookers on a nightly basis, yet he's saying that he wants 50-50 custody with his wife. There's absolutely no way. And of course, Denise isn't going to let that happen, but because she knows if her children go over there, they're going to be in literal danger. So again, this battle goes on. They spend the next 10 years, guys. 10 years in and out of court, bickering about child support and custody. Denise, of course, is hurt and she's angry, but then Charlie is just being bitter and stingy. And y'all, it took years. 2 years after Denise filed divorce the first time is when they were officially kind of divorced, and when they were able to like marry other people, but it still hadn't been fully resolved because they still hadn't come to an agreement on child support, and they still hadn't come to an agreement on custody. That would take another 6 months, which is absolutely freaking insane. In the end, they did get everything figured out, and like I said, the next 10 years they spent in and out of court because Charlie wouldn't pay child support or he wouldn't follow the court orders, and then Denise would have to come in and she'd have to like make the judge make Charlie do what he was supposed to do. Now, knowing Charlie, we know that this man did not stay single for 2 years. Throughout the entirety, I think almost the entire duration of his divorce from Denise, he was in a relationship with another woman by the name of Brooke Mueller. Now, this would end up being wife number 3, his last and final wife, and quite possibly his most toxic relationship to date. So when he was married to Denise, Denise was a very calming and very kind of like supportive and structurizing. I don't even know if that's a word, but she was a very calming presence for Charlie. She kind of kept him reined in a little bit. She kind of kept him calmed down. She was just that kind of influence on his life. But then when she left, he ends up finding probably the very worst partner that he could have picked for that time in his life. He goes out and he finds the female version of himself. Brooke was just as much of a wild card as Charlie was, and into this relationship she brings just as many problems and just as much baggage as he does. Now, Brooke, in and of her own right, she's got her own substance abuse issues. She's been in and out of rehab facilities. She's been in and out of jail. Like, she's got her own addiction issues. And then you pair her with Charlie, who not only has the money to fund those habits, but also the power to kind of get away with just about anything. And it is an absolute spree of just bad decision making. Brooke and Charlie end up getting introduced through a mutual friend. I think Rebecca Gayhart is the one that introduced them. They meet at a dinner party, and of course they hit it off instantly. They hit it off because they're basically the same person. And at this point in Charlie's life, he's looking for an accomplice, and that's exactly what Brooke is. They kind of feed off of each other. They bring out the very worst in each other, and what ends up ensuing is, I want to say, like 3 years of just absolute chaos. They meet in 2006, and very similarly with all of his other relationships, they date for around 3 months, and then Charlie gets down on one knee and he proposes. Now, like I said, Brooke was incredibly similar to Charlie. She too had been raised with money and had attended all of the best schools. She was raised with privilege, and she had never really had to face any consequences to her actions. And because of that, she had a little bit of that invincible complex. The same thing with Charlie. So also, she wanted to be an actress. Unfortunately, the acting career, it never really panned out for Miss Brooke. So by the time she met Charlie, she was trying to dip a toe into real estate investing and developing. She was basically more of a socialite than she was a celebrity, but that's okay. She was very, very pretty, and she got along with Charlie absolutely swimmingly. Like, they were they were two peas in a pod, really. So they meet, they get engaged, and then they get married. They both really enjoy the nose candy. They both really enjoy making bad decisions. So when you don't have somebody sitting there telling you, maybe that's a bad decision, the decisions you make just tend to get worse and worse and worse. Now, because at this point in time, Charlie was already in the middle of a divorce with Denise, though they got engaged within the first 3 months, they couldn't get married within the first 3 months. So they actually spent the next 2 years until his divorce from Denise was finalized. They spent the next 2 years kind of wilding out. Now, she moved in with Charlie. She met Charlie's 2 daughters. We have Sam and we have Lola Rose. And actually, Denise, through this entire time, is being nothing but gracious and helpful. Like, she is trying to foster a relationship with this new woman. She's trying to foster a relationship with Brooke because this is the new woman in Charlie's life. She's going to be around her daughters, and she wants there to be an open line of communication. She wants there to be a little bit of friendship there so that she can trust this woman to look after her daughters. So during this time, things are actually going pretty well. And even though some bad decisions are made, it seems like a little bit later into their relationship, Charlie and Brooke, it seems like they start to clean up just a little bit, and they start to domesticate themselves just a bit. And it seems like Brooke and Charlie are actually going to be a pretty perfect couple, right? Again, for all intents and purposes, from the outside looking in, it looks like they've got all of their ducks in a row. It looks like they're kind of the perfect couple. They ended up getting married on May 30th, 2008, surrounded by all of their family and friends at another enormous Beverly Hills estate. Now, they were able to keep up the appearance of, domesticated bliss for about a year and a half, but that was about as far as it was going to go. They were able to keep up appearances of, kind of domesticated bliss for nearly a year and a half. So I want to say about a year after they got married, they ended up welcoming a set of twin boys. So at this point, Charlie has 3 daughters. Now he has 2 boys added to that. So they have twins, Bob and Max. And at this point, it seems like everything is perfect. They are the perfect little four-count family, right? They've got money, they've got a career. Charlie's career is absolutely fantastic at this point. He's on 2.5 Men. He's got more money than he's ever had. Like, things are absolutely A+ fantastic. Unfortunately, about 6 months later, things go down the toilet, and they go down fast. They were able to hide the cracks in the facade of their perfect marriage for another 6 months after the twins were born. That is, until December 2009. Christmas morning, the police, they get called, they get alerted of a domestic dispute at Brooke and Charlie's home in Aspen, Colorado. It's Christmas morning, and all you hear are screams, shouting and screaming ringing through the neighborhood. Apparently, Charlie had been chasing Brooke around with something sharp and pointy. He had even held it up to her neck and threatened her. Brooke was genuinely fearful of her life. She was fearful for the safety of her children. And, of course, Charlie ends up getting arrested. Charlie was eventually sentenced to 30 days in a drug rehab center, 30 days of probation, and then 36 hours of anger management. Now, not only did Charlie get in trouble, but Brooke also, she went and she got in trouble too. She might not have gotten in trouble with the law, but she definitely was told that she needed to enter a program. So that's exactly what she did. You guys can guess that their argument was, of course, drug fueled, right? So I think in January, right after the new year, Brooke ends up entering into I think she enters into a wellness program in North Carolina in January of 2010. Now, Brooke and Charlie's marriage is well and truly over by this point. I think Brooke that same month goes and files for divorce. I think she files for divorce right before she enters the wellness program. Unfortunately for Brooke, this was not the end of her struggles with addiction. She ended up getting arrested at least 3 or 4 more times for possession. She got into a bar fight in, I think it was in Arizona. It was really, really bad. She was the one who had custody of their twins, but it got so bad that the twins ended up having to get sent to stay with Martin for a little while. But then when Martin couldn't keep them anymore, she got in trouble yet again. And of course, Charlie, he's well and truly in his meltdown era. This is when everything is blowing up with 2.5 Men, things like that. So he's well and truly gone off the rails as well. And the only person left to kind of step up and take care of these 2 babies is Denise. Denise ends up stepping up and taking in her ex-husband's twins. She takes in these 2 little boys. She takes care of them. She loves them like her own and doesn't ask for a dime in return. She doesn't complain. Throughout this entire kerfuffle, while researching for today's story, my respect for Denise Richards has just grown and grown and grown. You can say whatever you want to about her as an actress or what have you, but I think as a mother, this woman she's like grade A, top notch, just fantastic. She definitely takes her responsibility as a mother very, very serious. And the well-being of any child in her care is going to be her first priority. So I just absolutely adore Denise Richards so very much. Charlie was well and truly done with marriage by this point. So by this point, he's been married 3 times. They have all ended in spectacular failures, right? He's got 5 children, all of which he pays child support for. He is known around Hollywood as basically no good and a junkie. And his career is in complete and total ruins. Now, any sane, normal person would be like, it's time to straighten up and act right. Not Charlie. Nay, nay, I say. Charlie decides to lean into the debauchery. He decides to let any sense of right or wrong or responsibility go completely and totally out of the window and does exactly what he wants to do and makes a complete and total disaster of what is left of his life. He begins to hang out with adult entertainment workers, begins to date one or two of them. Actually, he gets introduced to a woman named Capri Anderson. She's actually hired to be his companion for an evening. He enjoys his time with her so much that he ends up hiring her again and again and again. They end up doing this for a couple of months until it blows up in just, the most poetic way possible. She arrives at his New York City hotel, and he commences to have a drug-fueled meltdown, cause thousands of dollars worth of damage to this hotel room. He, of course, hurts Capri in the process, who then, of course, goes and files a lawsuit against Charlie, which he has to settle out of court, and of course just drains his bank account even further. Now let's talk about his bank account for just a minute. So at the end of his stint on 2.5 Men, again, highest paid actor in television, $1.8 million per episode, he's got a net worth of about $150 million. So in the next couple of years, he's paying at least $1 million a year in child support. At least $1 million a year in child support. On top of all of the lawsuits that he has to settle, on top of all of his frivolous expenditures, hotel rooms, flights, food, things like that. And then on top of that, he is not bringing any more money in. He is not working, so there's nothing to refresh what is going out. He's not actively working on his portfolio. He's not actively working on trying to make his money work for him. Now, I don't know how it happens, but some way, somehow, his net worth dwindles down from $150 million to just $3 million. Now, it is still very possible to live very well on $3 million, but in comparison to 150, it's very, very tiny, right? And you got to think, dude, any other normal person would be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? I have got to fix this. Charlie isn't there yet, though. He's not quite there. He ends up entering into one last romantic entanglement with yet another adult entertainment worker. She's a corn star by the name of Scottine Ross. Now, he and Scottine have an actual relationship, and they date seriously for a little bit over a year. And again, he repeats this same process. Wife number 4, they meet, they start dating. 3 months in, he proposes, right? So after he proposes, they date for another 8-9 months until the month of their wedding. Charlie finally gets cold feet. He gets a cold splash of reality and realizes that this is just not a good idea. So 1 month before they're supposed to walk down the aisle, he backs out of the relationship. He ends his engagement. He blames it on his intense desire to focus on his children. However, I think he just kind of smartened up a little bit, realized that that probably really would be the end of him, and decided it was time to grow up just a little bit. So where is Charlie now? Well, after nearly marrying Scottine, he finally decided it was time to fix his life and get his act together. I guess that's exactly what he did. He focused on his biggest problem first, which of course was his drug addiction. His Coca-Cola addiction was very much the source of most of his problems. From what I can gather, he's been able to stay clean for the most part since 2015. Coming back from addiction, especially when you're that far gone, is so incredibly difficult. I have so much respect, and I'm so happy for him that he was able to do that. Now, after he fixed his kind of addiction issues, he then started focusing on fixing personal and professional relationships. He started with his ex-wife, Denise. Like I said, they have 2 daughters together, and for the last 10 years, he had kept her in and out of court over petty disagreements about custody and child support. Guys, he could barely take care of himself, let alone those children. There was no reason in the world for him to have custody at that point in time. think he realized that. He definitely apologized to Denise, and at this point, they have a very effective and very friendly co-parenting relationship. After he fixed his relationship with Denise, he then focused on his relationship with his father and his older brother, Emilio. Now, Charlie has always been super close with his father, but again, Martin's not going to tell Charlie what he wants to hear. He's going to tell him the truth, and sometimes that's difficult, and I feel like that's why Charlie cut him out for such a long time. But they are very much mending that bond now. And then when it comes to his older brother, Emilio, such a positive presence in his life, and again, stepped in such a big way when it comes to his Charlie's oldest daughter, Cassandra. Stepped into that fatherly role, was a great uncle, and was there for his daughter when Charlie couldn't be. So very, very positive relationships. After fixing all of that, then Charlie decided to really focus on his career, right? Because burnt it to an absolute crisp. It was basically donezo. And a lot of that stemmed from all of the horrible and hateful things he said about producer Chuck Lorre. So of course, that's like what he beelined for, trying to mend those fences. And he was in fact able to do so. They sat down, they had a conversation. By the end of it, they were both hugging it out, and they were bros again for the most part. He actually has thrown Charlie a couple of bones and given him a couple of guest appearances on a show or two. Now, by no means is Charlie back yet, but he's getting there. I believe he's trying to work on it best as he can. Right now, he is renting a beach house in Malibu, California, and, you know, he's happy. He's got full custody of his twins with his third wife. So Max and Bob, he's got full custody of them, which is really, really nice. So he's a full-time dad now. And yeah, he's just trying to live his life in peace and quiet. And after the wild ride that was his youth, I feel like he's definitely earned it. Guys, that is it for today's video. True Love Tuesday was spectacular this week. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. This is today's finished look. What do we think? Do we like it? Do we love it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a big old thumbs up before you leave. Guys, no filters, no fancy lighting. It is just me sitting in front of my camera telling you guys an epic story. Hoping you guys are enjoying what I'm doing. And until next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.